Hi everybody, so my name is Alexander Schmitt and I am from the DB Systel, which is the ICT service provider of Deutsche Bahn. And we're doing projects on behalf of our customers within the company. And today I want to show you what we did with Eclipse IoT, with Eclipse components on certain projects, what we are currently thinking about and what we are planning to do, and probably what the future is. And yeah, I'm happy to be here to learn things, and I already learned a lot this morning, so thanks everybody for that. Yeah, MQTT, so I could also rephrase that as just another MQTT fanboy, so we are certainly, and we're using that on the trains, especially here, which is something that is called Mobile Integration Platform, which will be featured on a talk on Wednesday by my colleagues Roland Dackerfru and Dimi Pishukin. They will talk about that project where we used MQTT a lot, for example, to put passenger informations onto the trains, or to start diesel engines actually. When you have a locomotive standing remotely and you want to pre-warm it and to start it before the driver actually passes by, then that is done over MQTT actually. We have some other projects that I just want to focus on. We're using MQTT quite a lot. I'm using PAO for it, and I just want to focus on two other projects. One is that for the which we call dynamic passenger information systems, which is on stations that are not so good equipped. You have such LCD displays, and they get that information over MQTT. And also the elevators and escalators. FTA stands for a typical Deutsche Bahn word, Fördertechnische Anlagen, which basically translates into escalators and elevators. But that's typical, first of all, a TLA and then that phrase. We are using, for both of those projects, we're using Gemalto modems, which is kind of a small device. We call that class 2 device, instead of our Intel architecture stuff, which is a class 3 device and class 2 devices, and they have a Java ME 3.2 stack on it and reported power on that. And we started with the IBM framework, but found Power to be much more user-friendly, and it's much better than the original IBM libraries. So that is used all throughout the company, Power. Tomorrow we have, especially on the vehicles, we see two new projects within our company. One is Digital Vehicle Solutions, which is actually originally named in English, and FlexFit, which translates roughly in variable vehicle IT. And you see the right-hand side being a system that powers the Maxdome video, which will be available in 2017 on the ICEs. And it is more or less infrastructure stuff. So what we do here is we have operating system, we have virtualization, we have software-defined network, software-defined storage on the trains, but also they have to do something, or they have to run applications there. And they are facing a problem similar, because we're using MQTT as much. They are interoperating applications now on the trains that are using MQTT. So we need a local broker, more or less. And this is where Mosquito comes into place. So we're using Mosquito on the vehicles, on the edge devices, to connect various IT systems that are co-located in the train or virtually co-located on one CPU. The future, of course, we're doing prototyping. We're having a thing that we call Skydeck in Frankfurt, where I'm working in the Silver Tower. And we're doing a lot of prototyping stuff and lab stuff and things like that. Everybody needs a lab today, and we're working together with startups and all that. And every time we need to set up a combination of these things, like a TI sensor tag, a Raspberry, and some kind of mobile router, then Kura comes in handy. So we use Kura currently a lot for prototyping, because it's easy to use. It comes in with all what is necessary, and even people that are not super good developers can even use it. And Kura now, so use it for what? Of course, I mean, the sensor tag, this is something that we usually take to talks and some things like that. We also have a prototype with LoRa, where we want to see how full as a room like this, for instance, or is it occupied or not, because we have difficulties getting meeting rooms in the Silver Tower. So we're having small sensors there, and they're talking with LoRa to our central station, and there we're using also Kura for the IoT gateway. Zigbee is also a thing we're playing around with for the seats, for example. For instance, we're using Zigbee to connect the individual seats so that you can register at your seat and will not be bothered by service personnel saying, hey, come on, give me your ticket or whatever. So you just register at your seat, and that seat is talking Zigbee currently. But this is all prototyping stuff. For Kura, okay, and we're using Amazon IoT and Amazon Web Services, of course. We are Amazon partners since the last year as Deutsche Bahn, and we're using Amazon service a lot for our prototyping stuff. Not so much for production currently, but it's increasing. Kura especially is interesting for us because I mentioned earlier we have that mobile integration platform that's running on the trains, and it's using OSGI and Equinox currently. And we developed our own software stack basically. And this software stack does a lot of things that Kura does also. So we're thinking about how can we merge that? I mean, this is all maintenance costs for us, and that doesn't really bring us more passengers or bring our trains more in time when we spend money doing development for infrastructure stuff. And Kura provides a lot of things we do like in a similar way, not in the same way. So this is one of the things we are currently thinking about. How can we merge that? And yeah, our needs, finally, our needs. I just show that white paper, which also excited me a lot. So our needs, which are currently our main needs. This is unified identity, access, and device management. So every project, what I mentioned before, every project does its own device management or identity and access management. This is not technology-wise. So they're all using like X509 certificates and stuff. But how do you generate that? How do you bootstrap the device and things like that? So every project out there has a different answer on that within our company. And we want to unify that because this is a very cost-intensive and also maintenance-intensive job, as well as device management, which is, of course, has something to do with maintenance, and we want to reduce maintenance costs. So that was my quick overview of what we are doing, what we are currently thinking the most of, which is this. And I'm open now for questions.
Questions for Alexander?
So you've indicated that you're using a lot of open source software for prototyping. Do you also use open source software for production?
Yeah, for production, this is actually where we are here. And you see, this is running for 3 or 4 years. In general, we're using kind of quite an increasing number of open source projects in production. And this one actually is in production for 3 or 4 years. So it's running on the trains, especially on all the ICEs. So if you're running an ICE and you're seeing your seat reservation above your seat, then this is OSGI powered.
But it has nothing to do with the climate control.
Pardon?
It has nothing to do with the climate control.
No, not yet. So we are on the ICE4, and there's that little feature actually that I'm very fond of. We have that variable lightning in the ICE4, though you can have the lightning a blue color or a red color. So, and if Siemens says, climate control will not fail in the ICE4, but if it fails, we can turn the light more blue, and then you feel more refreshed. And this feature would also be powered by OSGI and Equinox and all that stuff, you know?
In the next slide, Mosquito was going into production, if I understood correctly?
Yeah, tomorrow, that's tomorrow, yeah, right. That is going into production, Mosquito on the edge devices. So it's not yet there, but it will come there, I think in 2017 or so, yeah.
But if you go to your last slide regarding your need, is that mainly a problem that you have for the overall system, or the overall architecture, including the cloud backend?
Yeah, that's also a point. I mean, we are using AWS IoT services for the prototyping stuff, not for production yet. But what we see there is that device management is not as capable as we wish it. I mean, they have identity and access management. Of course, you can throw your, same as we do, you can throw your X509 certificates in there, and then you can create that proprietary policies. and stuff. But yeah, I don't think the Amazon Thing registry is a device management. That's not the case, and we need a device management. We have a project in front of us, which we will release a tender in a few weeks, where all of you can participate if you want, if you have a hardware company, where our freight wagons will be fitted with telematic devices. And this will be 30,000 telematic devices, and they are supposed to talk MQTT. And they have to connect either on-premise or on cloud. How do we do that? And how do we manage it?
When you talk about a device, you're talking about a train or what?
It depends. A train usually is, we see the train more or less like the IoT gateway, and then we have the sensors of the trains, and they come in different like safety and security levels. Of course, you don't want to have these systems that you update regular and where you leave your developers with an agile thing to the safety relevant systems, but you want to read values from there, of course, because you need it for predictive maintenance stuff and so on.
And your identity and access problem is about the gateway?
It's most about the gateway, but also the point where we use Mosquito on the train, we have when things go like, currently we have a system which is running on one dedicated CPU and it is built into a rack on a train, then it's fairly clear how data goes in and data goes out. But we are switching to a system where we just have a rack and there is 4 CPUs in it and whatever terabytes of data, and then we just make all those cloud stuff and software-defined storage, and then it's not as clear where the data comes from and where it goes from, because it's not tied to that single cable anymore. And then we have the issue also on the edge device. And how do we do that? How do we, like, a device that acts on behalf of probably a person who has the right to do something, so the OR stuff, but who is the person, and how does that policy gets to the device? And do we notice? That's also an issue.
Any other questions? I think there's a few device management people in the room, so
I saw a lot of that, Roger. Really interesting.
So hopefully you can have conversations with some of them before the end of the week. Other questions? So I think it's great. I think having people using our technology, talking about it, talking about the requirements is incredibly important for this community to get that perspective. And so, Alexander, thank you very much for coming and talking.
You're welcome.
So,
thank you very much.